coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Crowded Booth Live. Bryce Coon alongside Ralph Leary. Ralph, it's been a while since you and I have been live over the internet.
Well, last week was a little different. Obviously, we both had something. I had something to do, and I was not able to make the show.
Mm-hmm.
And we could not record Wednesday night. I forgot what was going on. Oh, you had something else going on. That's right.
Mm-hmm. So we ended up going on the radio. But listen, if you're listening to us on the radio, you are listening via East Alabama and West Georgia. I always have to get that correct. It's not the other way around. But also, we are live here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter as well. Make sure if you're in Twitter, which I see some people already in there as well, make sure that you head over to YouTube so you can put the comments in there. We always like to put that link that's on my page as well if you want to see that right there. We do appreciate everyone tuning in. And it's very, very... And it feels very good. Let's just say that. It feels very, very good, Ralph, to be talking about college football once again because the Atlanta Braves won the World Series.
Say it again. For people in the back, didn't hear it. The Braves.
2021 World Series champion, the Atlanta Braves. No, listen, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. And I don't think that we talked about football really at all, to be honest with you.
Can we just go ahead and start with some haymakers that you deserve?
What is that? Bryce Hodge going makes me sick. Anybody at a UGA game? Scott, I'll DM you a little bit later. Scott, hit me in the DMs. Come on now, guys. Anyways, but no, seriously, this is a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity to be talking about college football because what a week we just had in college football. Quite the week. Scott, I know you and the rest of the gang are ready for Georgia Tech show. That's going to be tomorrow at 7:30. We may shoot for 7 o'clock because Georgia Tech tips off their first basketball game tomorrow night at 7:30. So we'll kind of keep that in keep it in the rotation. Yeah. But Ralph, college football is quite the sport. Quite the sport it is. Week 10 was very, very interesting. And Scott, I do appreciate that as well. Ralph, can you throw that up, what Scott said? Yes, all good. Just having fun, guys. You do a great job. Appreciate it, Scott. Hey, stay along for the ride. I know you're not a fan of any of the teams we're talking about, but I know you're a college football fan. So share it with your friends and talk to us about it as well. Ralph, I want to start with the most intriguing story of the weekend, in my opinion, and it is happening down in Gainesville. Oh. Very, very interesting. I think we need to start right there talking about the Florida Gators. Walk me through this. Dan Mullen in Florida get beat by Georgia, which that's not a shame to anybody at this point. If you're losing to Florida or you're losing to Georgia, I mean, they scored a touchdown. So they have that going for them. They did score a touchdown. But when you look and see what's happened, they fired Todd Grantham. I don't know why it took this long, honestly. But Ralph,
is it officially done or is it just still rumored? Because
he's officially fired.
Thank God.
Listen, and Scott, I know you're still watching. You don't want him to come to Georgia Tech. You don't. It might be an upgrade on a very surface level, but no, it's not. But no, anyways, Dan Mullen in Florida, Ralph. This is weird. Very weird scenario. They get blown out on the road by Shane Beamer in South Carolina, but they've had a completely disappearance, Ralph, of their run game, which, even when Florida was struggling before last season with when they had Kyle Trask, that was the first year they felt like they had a quarterback that could do things. Now they don't have a quarterback that can do things, and they don't have a running game to lean on, and the defense is not as good. Where is it falling apart? To me, it's just straight talent. I don't think they have the talent to be able to catch up with anybody. I don't think they can beat. They can't show up right now and beat anybody, and that was evident this past Saturday.
I would say, and you told me this earlier, we talked about this on lunch today, if Florida had to go and play Tennessee right now, Tennessee would win. I completely agree with that. Florida just looks completely lost, and they've lost all faith in their coaching staff. And I think that started with Dan Mullen and it trickled down to Todd Grantham and everywhere else. I feel like they have given up on their season. The Kentucky loss has really just slapped them in the face. I think they had a chance to beat Alabama. We thought, wow, Florida's actually kind of good at this now. But you got, if you want to have a running back and you want to have running backs to do well, you got to let them get them going. When you're number one running back, Dameon Pierce has 6 carries. You didn't give him a shot to try. I think you try to do too much through Emory Jones, and as talented as he is, he's not a bad quarterback. I know everyone doubted him beginning of the year and last year when he stepped in a few times, but he had some huge games. I mean, Alabama game was a good one for him. But he didn't play bad. He just couldn't. They had a lot of drop passes. It felt like they just could never get anything going. I feel like they played so slow. A lot of 3 and outs. It was just like it was a boring game for Florida. Like South Carolina was playing full out. They were ready to beat the brakes off anybody, and they were just looking to beat it Florida, and they did.
Yeah, and give credit to South Carolina. They showed up to play, and they still had to win the football game, and they did just that. When you look ahead at Florida's schedule, Ralph, they're sitting 5th in the East right now. They play Samford this weekend, which, I mean, I've seen Samford up close. You've seen them up close. This is a high-powered offense. I don't know. I have no idea. The culture, there's no culture in Florida right now. And we know as well as anybody, when you want to build a successful dynasty-like team, which there's only really one of them we've seen, and that's Alabama, you have to have a culture. You have to. You have to be able to go year in, year out. And right now, Florida's not doing that. Dan Mullen, to me, I don't know what the reason for keeping him is. I don't see a reason for keeping him unless you're a Georgia fan watching and saying, yeah, keep Dan Mullen, and wish they'd have kept Todd Grantham too.
Any of an SEC East fan or SEC fan in general, besides Florida fans, you were saying keep Dan Mullen because it's fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, hilarious.
There's a possibility that you could be in Knoxville this weekend. I've said this for the past couple of weeks, and I think it's especially true after this past weekend. Tennessee is in a better spot right now than Florida is. Not just right now, but for the future.
Well, I think what Josh Heupel's done there has just been a testament of what he had to, what he said he was going to do. He knew that it was going to be a rough road ahead. He knew that it was going to be a rough year for these guys because he had to make them buy into this program.
Yep.
And that's one thing he's done really well. I feel like this whole team's bought into him. He's going to get some guys in the off season. He's going to get some recruits in there. He's going to get some guys who transfer in there. Mm-hmm. You lost your 2 best running backs last year, and you had to establish a new run game. You got to find a quarterback. You had Joe Milton, who was probably a very good quarterback for you, and got hurt, and then you had to start Hendon Hooker, and Hendon Hooker has been your number 1 guy since. And shout out to all the Tennessee fans who stayed faithful for this, and you know who you are if you're watching. Hendon Hooker is the truth for Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Hendon Hooker has turned into quite the athlete. He fits the scheme as well. But, man, Florida, it's just interesting. I think it's a dumpster fire right now, especially going back to this past weekend. 40-17, South Carolina beats them. It wasn't
never
even
lose
close.
To South Carolina 40-17. I don't care if, unless you're an FCS school or a smaller group of 5 who's not that good. But if you're Florida, who is considered one of the top Power 5 schools in the country, losing to South Carolina on the road with a new coach and their 3rd-string quarterback, and you really just need to reevaluate your whole entire, coaching staff at that point.
Yeah, and they're starting to do that. And the only reason, Ralph, that Florida's not dead last in the SEC East is because Vanderbilt exists and Missouri is having a nightmare of a year.
Well, they just have injuries.
They've had yeah. And Drinkwitz is still a good coach, but Florida's lost their last 3. Ralph, they've lost 9 of their last 12 games against Power 5 opponents. Do you see this turning around under Dan Mullen, or is this something where they need to go out and make a change?
I think it's turning into the same situation that Florida State had with Jimbo Fisher. I feel like that he just kind of given up with the program. I mean, he said in his last interview after the Georgia game, they asked him about recruiting. He said, "I'm not recruiting right now. I'm recruiting for the off season. You have to recruit 24/7 year round all day." Look what A&M did. A&M brought in.
That's literally why they have something called 24/7 sports.
Exactly. And then you look at what Texas A&M did, what Jimbo Fisher did this past weekend. Mm-hmm. Not only did he beat Auburn, but he brought in 3 recruits, 1 4-star, a 5-star defensive tackle who's terrifying, and then I think a corner also. Mm-hmm. Huge day for them, and that shows you recruiting 24/7. You have a game against Auburn. That's one of your hardest games of the year besides playing Alabama you already beaten. So he goes in there. I'm gonna get these 2 guys to commit. We might get a 3rd, who knows? And then we'll go beat Auburn, and that's what he does. Dan Mullen cannot do that. He's focused on one thing at one time, and to be a head coach, a Power 5 coach, in my opinion, you get to multitask, and you have to realize that there are people watching you play. There are people watching your team play. There are people watching you coach, and they want to play for you one day. You got to convince
Mhm.
them to do that.
I'm going to talk about this tomorrow with the Georgia Tech show, but I think it's applicable here as well. A lot of coaches want the CEO type, and to be able to do that, you have to have really good coordinators, and you have
Yes.
to have a really good staff around you. Nick Saban's at that level. Dan Mullen wants that. They don't have the infrastructure to back that up, and that's the big issue.
Well, I think with you look at Alabama and what Saban has. He's got Bill O'Brien. I mean, obviously people don't like Bill O'Brien calling plays, but he was the NFL coach last year. I mean,
Yeah.
he's been there. He's done that. He knows what he's talking about. So you surround yourself with guys that you can trust. I think that's what Brian Harsh has done at Auburn. He's found some guys he can count on and let those guys run with, and that's what Kirby's done the past 2 years. Now look at the success Georgia's having and success that some of the other schools are having. So find those guys you can trust. Obviously, eventually those guys are going to leave for better and bigger jobs, but you felt comfortable with those guys with your players.
Yeah, you've got to be able to find coordinators that can do work for you. Ed Orgeron struggled with that after the attrition they had after the national championship season. They have been able to find that. It's a hard thing to do. Florida does not have the infrastructure to do that. Dan Mullen can't do that. Ralph, let's stay in the SEC and let's talk about that Auburn Texas A&M game. Two teams that this was a de facto playoff. You felt like to get to the opportunity to represent the SEC West. Texas A&M passes with flying colors. Auburn still has some issues. What was your biggest takeaway from this game on Saturday?
It looked like Bo Nix kind of spazzed out. I don't mean that as a truth. And I know it's funny to say that, but it just looks like he was just not focused. And it felt like he was kind of off, from having the past two really good games that he's played extremely well in. They were not prepared. I don't think A&M did something different that confused them. I don't think it was the fan base. I don't think it was anything that Bo hasn't seen before. It's just I feel like that they had too much pressure on his shoulders and that he tried to do way too much, like always. And they threw the ball 41 times and they ran the ball 29. You have running backs with Tank Bigsby, Jarquez Hunter, and Bo Nix who can run. I mean, you got to have those guys play and let them do their thing. I feel like Auburn went back to what they did at the beginning of the year where they struggled at. And it looked like Auburn about week 3, week 4 instead of like looking past 2 weeks. And we saw Auburn play extremely well. The defense held out, man. They did it all best as they could. I mean, it was a defensive shootout for the first half, most of the third quarter, and then Texas A&M pulled away toward the end. A lot of field goals. A really boring game for the first 3 quarters if you watched it as a non-fan of each team. But it was, overall, it was a good defensive game for Auburn. If you want to look at all the nit and gritty of it, Auburn's defense played lights out.
Yeah,
you can only play so much defense before you're just exhausted. Look at Tennessee and the Kentucky game. I mean, Kentucky's on the field for what I think it's 49 minutes.
It was something like that. It was crazy. Yeah,
and then Tennessee's offense was on the field for like 13. But look who won. I mean, you don't have to be on defense for. I mean, your defense is going to give up some points if you're on the field for that long. Auburn's on defense was on the field for like the whole time. It felt like it was crazy. It felt like they couldn't get anything going offensively, and they couldn't stop them on the defense. And they was convinced they was force a turnover, turnover on downs, field goal. It just eventually your defense gets tired, and that's what happened. But then Auburn's offense just could not get going. Just a few mistakes and a few fumbles, and it's not as bad. The score 20-3 looks bad, but I don't think it's that bad of a score if you watch the whole game.
Yeah, Texas A&M. This was a 3-3 game at halftime. Ralph, I told you this today or yesterday, and there's been a lot of comparisons with Bo Nix and his style of play, the excitement that he can provide, and a lot of that, Ralph, has been, oh well, Johnny Manziel used to do that. Johnny Manziel used to do this, and I get that. I get that. This is my thing. Johnny Manziel never won a championship. Johnny Manziel never went to the SEC championship. He never won one. He never made a playoff or, made the BCS. That's when he started the BCS. That's how crazy, how long
he made more money, apparently. Though.
He made more money, but this is the thing. You can't play hero ball and live to see every single week a win. You can't do that. It's not going to work at this level of college football, especially in the SEC. Bo Nix, love the heart, love the guts that he has, but you can't just run around in the pocket and play backyard football every single week. It's not a way to win in the long run, especially at a school like Auburn. Every single year you're drawing Georgia and Alabama and then just pick a couple other teams. They're going to have a great year. This year it's Texas A&M. Ole Miss as well. But that's starting to happen, and I'm telling you, I know we have some Auburn people that watch the show. To me, Auburn has been such an up and down program for the past decade. They don't have consistency. It's you don't see them go 6-6. We talked about this the other day, and I talked about this last week. Auburn, for me, they're either very bad or they're very, very good. There's no really in between for Auburn. There's no 6-6, 7-5 season. There's sprinkled in there. But listen, Bo Nix is a heck of an athlete. Great guy. Fan base loves him, adores him. But you better be ready to ride the roller coaster that Bo Nix is, because it is definitely one. He's going to have games like he did where he pulled one out of nowhere like he did LSU, and he's going to have a game like he did against Georgia State and now Texas A&M where nothing can get going. And he tries to make the extra play. How many times have we seen him almost be sacked and just fling the ball out? You cannot do that. Like, you can't do that. At some point, it's going to come back and bite him. Like you said, there were some of the fumbles. This is the thing for Auburn, Ralph. You have a running back that pound for pound, mano a mano is probably close to the best in the SEC. I mean, he's probably up there in Tank Bigsby.
I would say, and honestly, this is not a biased pick, the first running back that was ranked at the beginning of the year in the SEC was Kevin Harris, and I don't think he played most of the year till now.
Yeah.
I would still say Tank Bigsby, pound for pound, to me is the best running back in the SEC. When they let him go, when he gets 20 plus
when
carries.
they let him go.
Oh, I completely agree, and that's what I'm saying. He had 15 carries for 69 yards. He had some really big runs that he just trucked people. Felt like he was stiff arming everybody, and you just stopped running them. And that's what I didn't understand. And that's the same thing what happens with all these other schools, man. You get some of these running backs in there, and I think it's the same with Florida. Damian Pierce, your number one running back, had 6 carries. Why? He's your best running back. You gotta let him go. You gotta let him establish a footing in the ground, literally, and let them get hot. It's the best way to do it. You gotta let he's gonna take some shots. He'll have one run or two that he might get a yard or make it not back in the backfield, but he won't do anything unless you let him try.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to explain Auburn's offense. You gotta let these guys. If you want to run with the talent you have, let them go. Yeah. Let them do their thing, and that's what like I said. The past 2 weeks they've done that, or past 2 games they've done that. Besides A&M, Ole Miss and LSU, they really did that. They really went out there and played their best football by let their quarterback and the running backs do their thing. And I felt like that was completely different on Saturday. And I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either. I think when you look at Auburn, Ralph, the best case scenario for them is obviously to go 9-3. They can win their next 3 games. We're going to talk about that in a little bit.
At the beginning of the year, that's a huge success for Auburn.
And when you talk about the team that they could beat at the beginning of the year, I don't think anybody was thinking this team would beat Alabama.
What we said beginning of the year, 6 or 7 wins?
I thought they could maybe win 7 games. But this is the thing, is they can still do that. Their worst case scenario, the worst case scenario is 7-5 in my opinion. I think that I don't want to see them losing at South Carolina, but that's a night game. Who knows? Who knows what can happen?
We just watched Florida get
But this is the thing. This is the thing. It's the roller coaster that is Bo Nix. It's nothing against the guy, and I want to make this known. Anytime we talk about somebody, anytime that we say something, doesn't mean that we don't think the guy's a good guy, that he's not going to, help the old lady walk across the street. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the fact that he is so inconsistent in playing football. He is not an NFL player right now. He does not have those traits. He's going to have to come back if he wishes to play at the next level. But these comparisons, he can do what Russell Wilson does, or he can do. I mean, literally in that broadcast, they said, "Man, that kind of looked like Russell Wilson." What are you talking about? Well, Russell Wilson is an all-pro, Pro Bowl type of quarterback that is, a Super Bowl champion. Yeah. Should be a 2-time Super Bowl champion if you really want to. If they hand off to Marshawn, but it's something to me is to be able to take the next step. Auburn has to find an answer at quarterback. And I'm not sitting here calling for, JT or TJ Finley, not J. That's the other quarterback issue we're going to talk about a little bit later. I'm not sitting here talking about TJ Finley coming in the game because I don't know. You and I have talked about this. The most popular guy on a roster is the backup quarterback. But you better be careful what you wish for. TJ Finley brought you back to win a game, but guess who he brought you back to win from? Georgia State. That's who he brought you back to win from. Georgia State's not that. Their defense is bad. They have a bad defense. So say all that to say, there's a serious problem with what there's a serious problem with the fans that are Bo Nix is great. You can't do that every single week. It's a roller coaster. You ride the highs of the LSU win, of the Ole Miss win, and then you come back and you have a game like this. You have to have consistency. How many times, Ralph, have we seen inconsistent quarterback play, not only in this season, but it's a thing. If you don't have consistent quarterback play, you're not going to challenge for a national title or even a conference title, especially in this conference.
If you watch Auburn in freshman year, or both freshman year, he was held back by so much because he was a freshman. He was young. He was going to make some childish plays. And we all saw that. Saw it his sophomore year. It's a COVID year. It's a weird season. A lot of people were saying, well, it's a weird year for him. Let him, I think we kind of washed away everyone's, COVID year, who played bad. I mean, I will say that, take away Alabama's season, but
there's some guys that played good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is a year that, where Bo is supposed to finally step into that role as being the leader, being a consistent quarterback. We know that people know he can be. I know he can be a consistent quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he can't do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's very capable of doing it. He's playing in a powerhouse SEC school for a reason. He started as a freshman for a reason. He's not incapable of playing football. I mean, he's a good quarterback. He's very talented. We always talk about how great of an athlete he is. And he is. And he'll always be an athlete. Yeah. But that's where it comes down to first. He's an athlete. He's going to make, he's going to try to do everything he can to possibly make a play. He may not make the smartest play, but he'll do something to make it, worthwhile.
Yeah. I mean, there's some plays he makes, you're like, holy cow, going back to the LSU game. But there's some plays that you go, holy cow. And it's two different tones. It's two different tones. It's holy cow, look at that. And then it's, oh gosh, what is he doing? So, I mean, to me, it's going to be very interesting. Now, they're going to be playing Alabama at the end of the year. We're going to talk about that when we come back right here on the Crowded Booth Live.
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Back here on the Crowded Booth Live, Bryce Coon alongside Ralph Leary. If you're tuning in over on the radio in East Alabama, Georgia, we welcome you. If you're watching via Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, make sure to hit that like, share button as well. Subscribe over on the YouTube channel. We're just a couple more away from 200, where Ralph Leary will send the lucky 200 subscriber $2 via Venmo. We cannot wait for it. Ralph, we talked a lot about Auburn. We go up the highway, little ways north, where in Tuscaloosa, the number 6 was on display in the rushing category. 6 total rushing yards for Alabama. 6.
Before we start this one, I'd like to say one thing about this game, and that was props to LSU, man.
Mm-hmm.
They were doubted from the get-go.
Let's talk about that first. LSU was doubted. They came out. They played like their hair was on fire. The defensive line was unreal. They stepped up to the challenge, just came up short.
LSU was a 29-point underdog in this game. Lost by 6.
I mean, you think of it as it's Ed Orgeron's, last stand, and he came within 1 or 2 plays of an upset of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Nick Saban was quoted saying this, I'm really proud of how our players competed. There was no way that we were going to try to let them score, and I think the defensive players stepped up. But it's always good to beat LSU, but they have great character and they provide great competition. And I think that's the big thing right there is when you see what LSU was able to do and what Alabama was not able to do. Ralph, Alabama has flaws. We've acknowledged that. This is not the same Alabama team. It's not what you would expect out of a Nick Saban coach team. But they have some things. They're still one of the best teams in the country.
Yes.
Now, are they the number 2? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But it's just very interesting how this is going to affect their, how it's going to affect their college football playoff resume. But what was the biggest takeaway from you? 6. We're serious. 6 rushing yards. That's what the number 2 team in the country had against a now 4-5 LSU team. Now, I know LSU played great. But they didn't block well. They didn't run the ball well. They couldn't run at the end of the game when they needed to, and they weren't really effective on third down. Those are all things that we don't normally see out of an Alabama team.
If you want to be, if you're an Alabama fan, you're going to be upset about this game. And if you're like, well, we didn't technically run for 6 yards. Take away Bryce Young's sacks, and he had negative 22 yards on those sacks. you end up with 28 yards. So congratulations, you still look like you played terrible against LSU. LSU just found a way to just get into Alabama's bad parts and just make them struggle. It looked like Alabama was off key all night. It wasn't like it was a 12 o'clock kickoff where everyone's still waking up and it takes a little while to get ready. No, it was a night game that you prepared for. You should have been prepared for. This is not a different team that played Auburn. It's the same team. They executed a lot better on Saturday than they did a few months ago against Auburn and everyone else, and especially Ole Miss. LSU went out there and said, "We don't care." To me, they're the same boat as Auburn is, kind of, that they're not playing for anything. Mm-hmm. They're just going out there and you're going to play the best football they can against whoever shows up on the field against them. If Alabama comes out there and says, "We're going to play our best game and beat you like a drum," LSU's going to start their own fight. They're not just going to roll over and take it. Yeah. And I feel like that's what Alabama did. They just rolled over. They didn't know they thought it was an easy walk, a cakewalk. They really did. If you watch Alabama's demeanor on the sideline, they weren't hyped. They weren't excited about anything. They just kind of like, wow, we're playing really bad, playing really slow. Mm-hmm. You can tell Saban was livid on the sideline. I think I may get his name wrong. Is it Pete Golding?
Pete Golding's the defensive coordinator. A lot of people want him gone.
How does he still have a job? After last year, I really thought, or 2 years ago, I really thought he had lost his job.
Yeah.
I just feel like Alabama's got, like I said, they have flaws, man. Mm-hmm. They're not the juggernaut that we saw last year. They're not the same team you saw last year. Not the same team we saw a few years ago. They have flaws. They have every single year. Mm-hmm. They had the last undefeated. Take out 2020. They lost 2019 to Auburn on the road. Alabama has flaws every single season. And some teams are able to, promote those flaws. And I feel like that's an LSU team and an Auburn team every year are able to execute properly against what Alabama does wrong. And I feel like Alabama goes out and expects to win every game, and they just get hit in the face.
Well, the thing is, too, we were talking about this today, LSU still has great athletes.
Yes.
They're depleted. They had a lot of injuries. But, Ralph, to me, was the offensive line was a mess of penalties and missed blocks. Bryce Young was sacked 4 times. The running game could never get going. Brian Robinson, who's a really good running back, rushed for only 18 yards on 12 carries. And the defense gave up a lot of explosive plays early in the game, which, Ralph, when you're a team that wanting to pull off an upset and a defense allows you to have opportunities for explosive plays, that's the recipe for disaster if you're a team trying to avoid an upset. It was there. The recipe was there for LSU. You talked to me today, they probably should have won it. They probably should have won this game because Alabama didn't play well at all. But let's take a step back. Now let's ask the question. The SEC West is interesting because now Texas A&M, after beating Auburn, is becoming a massive Auburn fan. They're a big Mississippi State, or they're a big I'm sorry, not Mississippi State, but they're a big Auburn fan heading into the Iron Bowl because if Auburn beats Alabama, Texas A&M is going to the SEC championship game. Now, obviously, the Aggies have to win out the rest of their games, but for you, I mean, there is reason to believe, in my opinion, November 27th is going to have a lot riding on it, and it's going to be a very interesting game that's not going to have the usual storyline around it of here's a juggernaut Alabama team that's being potentially beaten by a undermatched Auburn team. I think these teams are a lot more even, and they both have their flaws. They both have their struggles, and it's going to be primetime television, 3:30 kickoff the Saturday after Thanksgiving on CBS, and for good reason. It's going to be packed out in Jordan-Hare.
I think, and you can either agree or disagree with me, and I know you haven't been to one. I feel like the Iron Bowl, no matter where it is, no matter when it is, no matter who's playing it, is the best atmosphere in football, in college. Mm-hmm. I think that game brings so much attention to it every single year. I really think that this game might be one of the biggest games in both coaches' seasons. Honestly, Alabama obviously has a loss to A&M. Auburn has a few losses, but you've lost to teams that are really good. So you're not like Brian Harsin's not looking down at his schedule and saying, "Wow, we lost to some really bad teams this year." You take the Georgia loss away. Everyone's lost to Georgia this year. It's okay. But if Alabama wants to have a chance to make it to Atlanta and make it in the playoffs, they have to watch out for Auburn. We were talking about it last week. Auburn is one of the scariest teams in November, and it's true. I mean, they lost Saturday to A&M. Okay, A&M is a good team. I'm not discrediting what A&M did on Saturday, but if you want to go out there and play Auburn and expect to walk through them because they're 6-3 right now, think again. Auburn does not care what their record is. They're going to go out there and play like we're going to be Alabama again.
We've got a couple comments right here, Brian. Alabama has a major flaw at quarterback. He can't handle the pressure.
Well, he's also. I will say this real quick. He is a young quarterback. This is technically his first real season, real test. He still threw for 302 yards. I don't think he's the flaw. I think he throws better when he's scrambling. I think I said that a few times now. And I think he's going to be a really good quarterback. And I think people doubted him at first because he's not the traditional Alabama quarterback everyone's used to seeing. So Bryce Young will be a Heisman winner for Alabama. He will lead them to a national championship one year, and just not this year.
Just not this year. He might still find his way, depending on what happens, to the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
It's a weird road ahead for everyone, and he'll be. I think he'll be in wherever they're having the Heisman Trophy ceremony this year. I don't know where. It's not New York anymore, is it?
I don't think it is New York. Let's get this comment, but SEC football over on YouTube. Aggies have been disrespected by the media this whole season. Aggies should be in the top 7 tomorrow in the rankings. I mean,
I won't disagree with you. But the teams in the top 7 are just either undefeated or one-loss teams. A&M should be in top 10 easily.
Yeah.
With Wake Forest and Michigan State both losing on Saturday, they will definitely move up into the top 10 easily, and they will probably be 8, probably the most. But I could be wrong. No one knows. The college football playoff ranking is a different breed. So
it's a different breed. Let's touch on this real quick before we talk about this playoff rankings. Georgia, the third team in our area, they dismantle Missouri. Ralph, Georgia doesn't win games. They don't boat race you. It's like a slow, methodical process of tearing you limb from limb.
It's a slow, methodical beatdown.
It's crazy. It's they don't beat teams except for the last 2 minutes of the second quarter in Florida. This is not a team that just like races out to like a 35-0 lead and sits on it. They just kind of like slowly like 16-3,
the first quarter
23-3,
7-3. I mean,
yeah, it's and what halftime was 33-3 or 26-3.
26-3, yes.
26-3. I mean, that's
a manageable game. That really is a manageable game.
It's a manageable game if you're not in Missouri and you're not playing Georgia. That's the only problem. Ralph, Georgia's defense, we keep talking about and waiting for that offense to come along and do something. That could happen, potentially happen this weekend. We'll talk about that. But we may look back on it and just say, yeah, Georgia's defense was just that good. They were just that good.
They're the 2019 LSU offense good.
On the defensive side of the football.
Yeah.
Or 2020 Alabama
I'm comparing it to them.
I like that. Georgia offensively, listen, they're still able to do what they want. All the talk about the injuries, Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends in the country as an 18-year-old. Not even close.
He's the best freshman in college football.
He's been unreal. Jermaine Burton comes back healthy. That's a serious weapon. Ladd McConkey is the real deal. He's very good.
Oh, man.
Pierce Jackson is getting healthy.
If you don't love watching Georgia play and hearing Ladd McConkey and Brock Bowers make plays, you don't love football. And Marcus Rosemy Jack Saint. I mean, some of the best names in football were on Saturday.
It's interesting to me because this is a Georgia team. Ralph, we'll talk quickly about this. Does this quarterback situation? I mean, JT Daniels comes in. He does throw an interception.
I didn't understand the situation. I think I understand why you play him against the reps, but I mean, Stetson wasn't playing bad.
They brought him in because it was a 33-3 game. Like it didn't. The game was over.
I understand that.
It's putting in.
But he throws an interception first try. I'm like, a lot of people were like, "Wow, is Stetson better than JT?" I mean,
but I'm asking, do you think it matters?
Who plays
in the long run? We're talking about on January the 12th, after the national champion has been crowned. Can Georgia win one with Stetson Bennett at quarterback? In your opinion,
with this team right now?
Yeah, a team as it is. Yeah.
I could play quarterback for Georgia and they can win the national championship. You don't need a 5-star Heisman candidate quarterback with this team. Your defense is a 5-star Heisman candidate defense. Honestly, if you could do it, give the Heisman to Georgia's defense. They're absolutely insane. They are game changers. They are team destroyers. They are mental breakers. There's a lot of words you need for Georgia.
Dream crushers.
Dream crushers is a great one.
Mm-hmm.
But they just, I think you just need someone who be consistent. I think he's Bennett's in all year. He's led your team. As much people can't stand Stetson Bennett, I don't understand why. He's consistent. He helps you win games. You have the best running back room in college football. You have the best defense in college football, the best freshman in college football. You're okay with whoever it is behind your center. It could be Carson Beck. It could be JT Daniels. It could be Stetson Bennett. It could be Zamir White with a broken arm. Georgia will be fine at whoever's a quarterback. Now, that's what I'm saying. Whoever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If Stetson plays the rest of the year and you win a national championship, are you blaming Kirby that he didn't play JT Daniels? Or are you saying, wow, I don't understand anything? Because Kirby actually knows what he's talking about because he is a college football head coach for a reason.
Yeah. Well, and listen, the offense, people are just, I think the people really need to watch Georgia play because this is not the same offense that's turn around and hand the ball off 50 times a game. They can do that, but man, you said it the other day, Stetson Bennett, that throw that he had in the corner on 4th and 6 to Arian Smith, which is another guy who has world-class speed that they have to put out there. That's an NFL level throw. Like he put it only where his guy could throw a 35, 33-yard touchdown pass in the back corner of the end zone. And you texted me immediately. I was at the game. And you said, I've never seen a fan base that hates a quarterback more that is by far and the best team in college football. Like, I don't want to, the whole jinx, okay, whatever. But this is the best team in college football. It's not even close right now with what they're complete. Ralph, they have shown we need to throw the ball 40 yards down the field. We can do that. We need to run the ball 40 times a game. We can do that. We need to win a game 9-3. Our defense will score the 9 points somehow. They'll kick 3 field goals. We'll just send Nakobe Dean out there to kick 3 field goals. It's ridiculous in how every single facet of the football of the game of football that they excel at. Do they have some flaws? We probably haven't seen them yet, but the thing is, Ralph, we may not see the flaws. That's what's crazy. Everyone keeps pointing to the secondary. Now, I know Tennessee has a great offense, but Tennessee struggles to run the football. I'm sorry. Tennessee doesn't struggle to run the football. When they have struggled to run the football,
they don't excel at running the football.
Well, I'm saying, yeah, but when you go look statistically at what Tennessee does, and I don't want to get too far on this because we're going to talk about it on Wednesday, teams have to be two-dimensional. Georgia is forcing teams to be one-dimensional, and there are a few teams of the past 5 years that can be one-dimensional and beat you. You mentioned one in 2019 LSU. Another one's probably 2020 Alabama. Those were historically great offenses. So it's not like – I get the expectation what Tennessee can do, but I don't expect Tennessee to go back and drop back 60 times and beat Georgia. I don't think you can do that against this defense.
I think what Tennessee does best, and I know we'll talk about it there Wednesday, is that Tennessee they're quick. They're not going to sit there and try to develop a drive. They're going to try to score as fast as possible so they don't have to wait for the defense to figure out what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, we'll talk about that Wednesday. One thing I add about Georgia is that their defense is relentless. I'm going to keep saying it. It's like every week in, week out, they just find a way to abuse you. And I say that, Missouri did not play horrible. Obviously, they only scored 6 points, but they threw the ball for 152 yards, no interceptions, ran it for 121. That's probably one of the best stat lines Georgia's allowed all year. Yeah. And I think the only person that can probably compare was South Carolina because they put up points late in the game. But props to Missouri for fighting. And then one thing I like to say: good teams win, but great teams cover.
Missouri
that's why Missouri's a great team. They're a great team.
Ralph, I want to point 2 things out right here. The thing is that the conversation has been, well, what happens when someone stacks the box against Georgia? Missouri did that. They dared Georgia to take deep shots with Stetson Bennett quarterback. Missouri did that.
Yeah.
And Stetson Bennett had 232 yards passing in the first half. He averaged 19.6 yards per completion. What does that tell me? Ralph, these are not 5-yard outs. They're not 7-yard slants. They're slinging the ball on teams. They can do it. They just haven't had to go get in a shootout with anybody yet. But I feel like it's waiting in the weeds.
Catch the ball, when you have a running back like James Cook can catch the ball, you don't need to run the ball. I mean, like I said, they have a great running back room, but all of them can catch.
Yeah.
They all have great hands. I haven't seen Zamir White technically catch football, I don't think, but I don't know if Georgia can be stopped offensively. They're good.
They're very, very good. And this is the thing, too. Georgia fans have made up their mind, a lot of them. You want JT Daniels. So what happens when Stetson Bennett proves those fans wrong, like he did this past weekend? You move the goalpost. What does that mean? That means you now say, well, what if we can't run? That happened on Saturday. Look what they did. The next one is, well, you have to do it against Bama. But every single time they've done that, Georgia's answered the call. It was, well, he doesn't throw a great deep ball. Well, he throws them yesterday, and it's like, well, they weren't hitting the receivers in stride. They've made up their mind. Fans are going to make up their mind no matter what we put and what we say. I think that's what's going to be interesting is until a defense shows up, and we're going to get the comment that SEC football put up there, until a defense shows up and shuts down Georgia's offense, which we haven't seen happen, that's when it gets interesting. Now, I'll say this. Clemson in game one did that. As much as people want to give flack to Clemson for not being a good football team, that defense, and I know they've lost a bunch of guys. They've lost a couple guys. Like you're talking about game changers they've lost on the defense. But that was a game, and Georgia found a way to win. It wasn't pretty, but I'm going to tell you one thing. If you're holding up the College Football Playoff National Championship trophy, nobody cares how pretty it was. 20 years from now, if Georgia wins this national championship, Ralph, all they're going to remember is that LSU, Alabama, and Georgia won national championships in 3 straight years. They're not going to – a lot of people are not going to remember that, LSU had the most dynamic offense. They did that, and they won it by, going away, and Georgia might win the national championship by 10 points. I mean, I think the thing is that Georgia has not been tested yet, and the key is I don't even know if they will be to an extent where people are actually scared going into the fourth quarter. We haven't seen that yet.
Going off what you said about it wasn't the prettiest. If you want to talk about something that wasn't pretty, please recap the Braves season this past year.
There you go.
It wasn't the prettiest, but guess who's holding the World Series trophy up in the year? Your Atlanta Braves. So it's not always people talk about the ending and how it ended, but you don't want to talk about the path they got there. I mean, Georgia had to fight some really good teams this year. I mean, Clemson, like you said, as much as they've lost, they were really good that year, and they exposed a lot of things Georgia couldn't do at first. And Georgia had to figure it out. They went up and played UAB, and props to UAB for even walking to that stadium.
They got a nice check.
Yeah, they did. And that stadium
Charleston
looks nice.
Southern will get a nice check in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the UAB's new stadium looks nice.
It does.
So
SEC football right here. The only team that can maybe challenge Georgia's offense.
Oh, offense. All right. Okay.
Is A&M's defense. A&M's defense, they play well, man. They got a good defense.
They are quick. And I mean, they are fast. They can, they made Bo run a lot on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the same thing to Bryce Young. They made Bryce Young run a lot. Mm-hmm. He scrambled, like I said, Bryce Young does do very well in the scramble. I think A&M's defense, is able to execute properly and make the quarterbacks get uncomfortable quick. I think Georgia's offensive line is better than both those teams' offensive lines.
Yeah.
And I think that Georgia has better running backs / receivers and tight ends than what Alabama puts out in the field.
What's going to be interesting to say, Ralph, while we close up tonight's show, we're going to let's give our Week 11 playoff rankings. Go ahead and give me your top 4. Who are your top 4 heading into Week 11? We'll go this presented by Climate Control Heating and Air. Our Climate Control Heating and Air top 4 in the CFB. Ralph, who are you rolling with at number? Let's work backwards. How about that? Let's work
4 to 1.
We'll work 4 to 1. Well, let's just work 1 to 4 because everyone knows number 1's Georgia. Ralph.
Let's just work 2 to 4 because we all know.
Okay, so number 1's Georgia on both sides. Number 2, who you putting in that number 2 slot?
I'm moving Oklahoma to 2. I would drop Alabama to 3 and Cincinnati to 4 and Oklahoma 2 because Alabama, like I said, did not prove anything to me on Saturday. They struggled a lot. Cincinnati also struggled a lot on Saturday. And I know people are going to hate me. I know one person's probably going to come for my throat, but if I see them, it's okay. Cincinnati did not prove anything to me on Saturday. I'm sorry. I was looking at the AP poll, not the college football rankings. I don't know why that went away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia, Oklahoma, Oregon, Cincinnati. Those are my top 4.
So you have Oklahoma jumping from 8 or 7 to number 2.
I can't get my college football rankings up. There they are.
Interesting.
I mean, you got Michigan State out there.
That's it. Yeah, that's
and Michigan has I don't know why Oklahoma's even ranked at 8. I mean, they are undefeated, and then you have 3 one-loss teams ahead of them.
I'm going to roll with this. I think that this is going to be interesting. So
let's be honest, 2 through 4 doesn't matter. Number 1's Georgia. That's all that matters. Really.
One's Georgia. Who's your 2 through 4 again?
I'm gonna go Georgia. I'm putting Oregon at 2. I realized I forgot Oregon was in the top 4.
Mm-hmm.
I'll move Ohio State to 3, and I put Oklahoma at 4.
Interesting. So you're dropping Alabama all the way out. I'm going Georgia. I'm sticking Alabama second. I think it's biased. I think they love Alabama's. I mean, I think it's a thing where it's the brand. They're going to keep them there until they're knocked off. I'm going to go Georgia, Alabama. I'll put Oregon at 3, and I'm going Ohio State 4. At 5, I've actually got. I'm going to roll with the Wolverines of Michigan, and then 6 Oklahoma, 7 Cincinnati. If we want to go that far, I think Cincinnati. And I just said that too. I think Cincinnati drops a spot. They've already shown that this is. I'll say this, Ralph. This is a great analogy. This is a pageant show. It's a beauty contest, and right now Cincinnati couldn't even win Miss Congeniality for our fans out there that enjoy those type of movies. But that's all the time we have for tonight. Ralph, we appreciate it as always. It's so lovely to have you back there. Listen, once again, we're live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube every Monday and Wednesday night from 8 p.m. to around 8:50, 8:55 Eastern. We enjoy taking your comments as well. SEC football, hopefully you're a new subscriber, inching up there. Brian, we appreciate you reaching out. Scott, we'll see you tomorrow. We can't wait to talk about some Georgia Tech stuff. Very interesting show on tap, Ralph. You're going to be behind the scenes. It's going to be very interesting, fielding some comments. We are going to be unveiling a potential call-in feature tomorrow that Ralph is going to be managing. So that's going to be a ton of fun. We can't wait for that. Listen, we appreciate it as always, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bryce Kuhn alongside Ralph Leary. We say so long and enjoy your rest of your Monday, Tuesday evening, wherever you might be listening, and have a fantastic rest of your day. And Ralph, as always, thanks to our sponsors, Section 103, Cook's Place Hot Dogs. Make sure to make your way over there for the best scrambled dog in Columbus, and Climate Control Heating and Air. Make sure, folks, to keep your stick